introduce our next new fellow, Deborah Britzman, from the Faculty of Education at York University. Deborah Britzman, distinguished research professor and practicing psychoanalyst, has revitalized the contribution that psychoanalysis is making to the study of teaching and learning. Among the most highly cited scholars working in the field of education today, Dr. Britzman's award-winning books and essays are widely acclaimed for the depth of insight that she has brought to education of teachers. Her work's originality and courage, as well as its eloquence and texture, its wit and hopefulness, are widely recognized as having advanced our understanding of what it means to learn. Professor Britzman.
I'd like to thank the Royal Society for this wonderful honor, but I also want to say I'm quite honored to be speaking to my esteemed colleagues, so thank you as well. My deep interest is with the study of psychoanalysis and education, and this can mean the psychoanalysis of educational experience as well as an analysis of psychoanalytic education. It can also mean the study of the psychical consequences of knowledge, love, and authority that I see as the foundation of intersubjectivity for both the clinic and the classroom. I'm currently writing a little book called The Psychoanalyst in the Classroom. It emerges from a series of studies on the emotional world of teaching and learning in the university. Some of the topics involve depression in teaching, the uses of theory, the writing block, Freudian techniques, the question of passion in learning, and the problem of writing about experience in education. My approach begins with a few subjective or psychological facts. The human is the only creature that needs education, and this need transforms into desire. That we grow up in school and family life during our most impressionable and vulnerable years, and that love, hate, and ambivalence are played out in our relationship to knowledge and the other, and that finally education is our human condition. I call these subjective or psychological facts because they do not know their destiny. We can only know more about their present influence on values, attitudes towards language and knowledge, our imagination and agency, and our interest in opening minds. The subjective world, I believe, however, is felt before it can be known, and this is the gap that my research tries to understand. I can divide my work into three large categories of thought. I began with developing a philosophical anthropology of the teacher's life world with the question, what does learning to teach do to those learning to teach? The work took me to a study of cultural myths in the making of the teacher that had to do with problems of authority, dependency, and the transmission of knowledge. Here, development is uneven and suffers the old problem of knowledge and ignorance. Another dimension of the teacher's formation brought me to the problem of identity, or how one becomes somebody when surrounded by so many contradictory directions, impositions, and cultural demands. Here I study the categories of normalcy, whether tied to gender, race, sexuality, beauty, and intelligence, as part of our deep preoccupations of recognition and misrecognition. I approach these topics through debates on multiculturalism, adolescence, bullying, gay and lesbian youth, and conflicts of misunderstanding in the university classroom over theory, identity claims, political life, and the pressure to be a role model. The second area of inquiry brings me to the study of curriculum theory in the university and compulsory schooling, and loosely follows from the socio-political debates on education after Auschwitz. The question I ask is what it means to go on. It is here that I developed a concept called difficult knowledge, where educators must turn to topics of humanly induced destruction, cultural hatred, and psychosis, and bear the emotional burden. From the ravages of genocide, the question is not only how to convey what has happened, but how are we to be affected by the study. One example has been in the tracing of the history of the reception of the crafting of Anne Frank's diary over the last century, as well as looking at lost writers who have survived the Holocaust, and whose novels aren't read anymore. Another dimension of this work involves studies of controversies in psychoanalysis and how psychoanalysis is affected today by what remains unresolved in the field of its theory and its clinic. My third interest, and where I began my remarks, is with the dialogue between psychoanalysis and education as opening the emotional world of teaching and learning to what it doesn't know or what it can't bear to know or what it can't tolerate knowing. Here my interest is loosely tied with the area called mental health, but really I'm interested in studying images and fantasies of mental health, or the tacit unconscious theories people have about the emotional world and their views of others. I see this dimension as a study of social anxiety or social hope in education. My approach is to analyze novels and popular films of education, discuss with professors and psychoanalysts their views on teaching and learning from the vantage of how they understand their emotional resources to do the work, and introduce some clinical discussions on problems of inhibition, anxiety, and aggression in teaching and learning. And I hope to restore a rather old and forgotten field of thought, namely the psychology of teaching and learning, and to take this from a post-humanist view. So in conclusion, I now think that my significant contribution is to open and transform what can count as research for the educational imagination and for the idea of education as a human condition. Thank you.